There are Parisian apartments that impress us immediately, and then there are those that ask us to slow down. This vintage Paris apartment belongs to the second kind, revealing its character gradually through light, aged materials, quiet proportions, and forgotten craftsmanship that still gives every space a distinctive soul. From the street, the building appears remarkably familiar, almost understated among the historic facades of Paris. Tall windows rise above the sidewalk, balconies trace delicate horizontal lines across the stone, and the weathered exterior carries subtle variations of color that reveal decades of rain, sunlight, and changing seasons. The facade is beautiful precisely because it has not been made perfectly new. Pale stone shows gentle discoloration around the windows, while carved details catch shadows differently throughout the day. This patina becomes the first indication that the apartment inside is not simply decorated with vintage objects. It has been shaped by time itself. Crossing through the entrance changes the atmosphere immediately. Outside, Paris feels energetic and constantly moving. Inside, the building becomes quieter and more intimate. A heavy wooden door, aged hardware, stone flooring, and softened walls establish a transition from the modern city into a world where traditional materials remain part of everyday life. The staircase offers the first real glimpse of the craftsmanship that defines the apartment. Its proportions feel generous without being extravagant, while the handrail carries the subtle marks of years of use. Every step appears to connect the present with generations of residents who once climbed these stairs. At the apartment entrance, the design becomes more personal. Instead of immediately presenting a dramatic room, the home reveals itself through smaller architectural details: an old door frame, traditional molding, aged handles, and changing shadows along the corridor. These elements establish a visual language that continues throughout the interior. The first interior impression is not about decoration but atmosphere. Soft daylight enters from distant windows and travels across pale surfaces, creating a gentle rhythm of illumination and shadow. Vintage furniture sits comfortably within the architecture, suggesting that the rooms were allowed to remain themselves rather than being redesigned around a single trend. Light is perhaps the most important material in this home. Morning illumination arrives softly through tall Parisian windows, touching plaster, wood, fabric, and stone in different ways. As the hours pass, the apartment changes without requiring new decoration, proving that natural light can become one of the most powerful elements of interior design. The living room feels collected rather than manufactured. A vintage sofa, antique side tables, framed artwork, and carefully positioned lamps create layers without overwhelming the architecture. The room does not attempt to look like a showroom. Instead, it feels like a place where objects have accumulated naturally through years of living. The walls deserve closer attention because their imperfections contribute greatly to the atmosphere. Subtle variations in plaster, faint marks, and changes in texture prevent the surfaces from feeling sterile. Rather than hiding every trace of age, the design allows these imperfections to become quiet reminders that this home has experienced a life before the present. Along the ceilings, traditional molding provides another layer of visual history. These details may seem insignificant from a distance, yet they change the proportions of the room dramatically. Their delicate shadows create depth, framing the architecture while demonstrating a level of craftsmanship rarely reproduced with the same character in contemporary interiors. A fireplace becomes one of the room's natural anchors. Its aged surround introduces another material and another period into the composition, while the space above it creates an opportunity for art and objects. Even when the fireplace is no longer essential for heating, it continues to perform an architectural role by giving the room a sense of permanence. The vintage furniture is carefully chosen to complement rather than compete with the apartment. Curved wooden legs, worn upholstery, aged finishes, and traditional silhouettes introduce warmth. Each piece appears slightly different from the next, creating the impression of a home assembled gradually rather than purchased during one perfectly coordinated decorating campaign. Yet this apartment is not a historical reconstruction. Contemporary necessities exist alongside antique pieces, allowing the home to remain practical. This balance is essential because the goal is not to freeze Paris in the past, but to demonstrate how vintage architecture and modern life can coexist without either one losing its identity. Moving deeper into the apartment, the corridor becomes an architectural experience of its own. Instead of treating circulation as wasted space, the design allows doorways, artwork, molding, and changing light to create a sequence of visual moments. Each opening offers only a partial glimpse of the next room, building anticipation naturally. The dining room introduces a slightly more intimate mood. A vintage table becomes the center of the composition, surrounded by chairs whose different textures soften the formality of the architecture. Above, warm lighting replaces the cooler daylight, creating an atmosphere designed not merely for eating, but for conversation and lingering. The kitchen reveals another side of the home's personality. Practical surfaces and modern functions are integrated without completely erasing the vintage character. Traditional proportions, muted materials, aged-looking hardware, and carefully selected objects allow the kitchen to feel connected to the rest of the apartment rather than appearing as a separate contemporary installation. It is in these transitional spaces that the forgotten craft becomes most visible. Door handles, hinges, trim, switches, cabinet edges, and small decorative elements may never become the main subject of a photograph, yet together they create authenticity. A home often feels old not because of one spectacular feature, but because hundreds of small decisions belong to another era. The bedroom becomes quieter still. Soft textiles, vintage furniture, subdued artwork, and filtered daylight create a retreat that feels removed from the noise of Paris outside. Nothing appears excessively polished. Instead, the room embraces softness, allowing the textures of linen, wood, plaster, and aged surfaces to establish a peaceful vintage atmosphere. Here, light becomes almost cinematic. Early sunlight moves slowly across the floor and touches the edges of furniture before reaching the walls. This changing illumination gives the room a different personality from hour to hour, demonstrating how the apartment's most beautiful decoration may be something that cannot be purchased: the passage of natural light. Even the smaller rooms contribute to the larger story. A compact reading corner, a narrow passage, or a modest dressing area can carry the same architectural language as the grander spaces. Their importance lies in continuity, showing that vintage character does not depend on size but on proportion, material, and attention to detail. Throughout the apartment, texture functions almost like a visual record. Rough plaster, polished wood, soft velvet, cool stone, aged metal, and woven textiles respond differently to light. Together they create a tactile landscape where the viewer can almost imagine touching the surfaces, sensing the accumulated history embedded within the materials. Artwork is used with restraint, allowing each piece to participate in the architecture rather than simply filling empty walls. Vintage frames, paintings, mirrors, books, and collected objects introduce personal stories. Their arrangement feels intimate, suggesting that the apartment is inhabited by someone who values memory as much as appearance. By afternoon, the apartment becomes warmer. Sunlight reaches deeper into the rooms, highlighting imperfections that were almost invisible earlier. Furniture casts longer shadows across the floor, artwork gains stronger contrast, and the vintage surfaces seem to become more expressive. The architecture appears to move even though nothing inside has changed. As evening arrives, the character shifts once again. Lamps replace daylight with smaller pools of warmth, leaving parts of the apartment in gentle darkness. This layered illumination creates intimacy and depth, allowing the vintage furniture, artwork, fireplaces, and architectural details to emerge selectively rather than being illuminated uniformly. The authenticity of this apartment does not come from filling it with antiques. It comes from allowing old architecture, contemporary living, natural light, and imperfect materials to coexist. The home feels convincing because nothing is forced to perform a historical role. Everything is allowed to age, function, and contribute to the atmosphere in its own way. Ultimately, the apartment can be understood through three forces: light, time, and craft. Light continually transforms its appearance. Time gives materials their patina and emotional depth. Craft provides the architectural framework that holds everything together. Remove any one of these elements, and the apartment would lose much of the character that makes it unmistakably vintage Paris. Perhaps the greatest lesson of this vintage Paris apartment is that beauty does not always come from adding more. Sometimes it comes from preserving what already exists and allowing time to remain visible. Here, forgotten craftsmanship, changing light, aged materials, and thoughtful living create something more lasting than a fashionable interior. A home whose story continues to unfold with every passing day.